Blog Talk Radio.
Caro the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Caro the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Caro the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Caro the Coach. Always available, too, at carothecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I am married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
I got an interesting email this week. He says, thank you for taking my
call. You know, I have a lot of sexual problems and I need your help. Well, this is Caro the Coach, and I am here to help you with all your issues. And there's no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone. So welcome to Sex Help with Caro the Coach. If you are suffering from a sexual addiction, or if you think that you know you have a sexual addiction, or you are a partner of somebody who has a sexual addiction, you are absolutely, positively in the right place. Because what this show offers you is a place to kind of talk about your issues, and a place to hear about the new and upcoming treatment for this disorder, whether you be an addict or a partner. I got to tell you, I am very, very, very blessed to be able to help addicts. And I was trained by the best, Dr. Patrick Carnes, and it's been an amazing journey. I started thinking, I hope that I can gather enough information to really help people. In the meantime, what I realized is addicts really, really, really needed help recovering from their shame. And they needed the tools to help them to stay a steady course of recovery. In addition to that, what I knew to be true is that their partners carried the pain, and they, too, really needed help. So starting this week, I am going to get certified in working with partners. I got to tell you, I've been helping partners for a long time. One of the things I know is that I only know what I know, and I need to know more. So I'm going to be working with a group of people through the Association of Partners Recovery, and I'm really, really excited about that. I interviewed Barbara Steffens and Marcia Means on my show, many, many months ago, maybe even years ago, and I now have decided to take their course so that I can really offer to partners the most in what's available to recover from this trauma. You know, one of the things that I've learned is that partners suffer trauma, and sometimes they suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. And you may have heard me talk about it before, but I am going to be doing through the International Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals that's who trained me to do sex addiction, I'm going to be offering them an opportunity to learn about post-traumatic growth, because I'm a therapist and I'm a coach, and I believe that whatever you go through makes you stronger. And so I want therapists to know how to make their clients stronger, not only through recovery tools, but in understanding that you didn't sign up for this, you had no idea you were going to go through it, but doggone it, you can better your life and be better than you ever thought you could be. That's my promise to you. So I'm doing that, but I'm also learning about the trauma partners. I cannot wait. It involves 4 days for any of my clinicians listening to this show. It involves 4 days of trauma work and understanding partner work, and then I think about 30 hours of supervision from some of the best. And, it's interesting because I supervise so many different people, and so when I've told my friends, oh, yeah, and I'm going to get 30 hours of supervision, they're like, Carol, you could teach the course. And I said, you know what? Yes, I've had a lot of experience, but what I know to be true is you can always get better when you work with people who have developed a niche in this particular situation. So I am so looking forward to it. I know it's going to bring me great shows to bring forward to you. And one of the things that I work with addicts on is developing empathy and reassurance and safety, trust, and connection. And I'm going to know how to do that bigger and better. So if you're an addict, stick with me. If you have a partner, hopefully you're going to make him or her feel better. If you don't, I hopefully will help you to find somebody that really understands you and that you can connect with. And if you're a partner, God bless you. I know you've been through a lot of pain. This is the biggest betrayal of your life, and I'm here to make you feel better. You're listening to Caro the Coach, and if you have a question for me, you can always email me at carothecoach@AOL.com, or you can go to my website, Help, Caro the Coach, and take a look at my website. I think it's informational. There are many other websites that are out there that are way better than mine. I hope you can feel friendliness. I want to take you all to the next level. That's the coach in me. And to do that means that I have to get you to follow through on the discipline you need to make your recovery the best ever. Now, I'm always interviewing people that know way more than me. And tonight I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Michael Barta. He is the founding director of the Colorado Sexual Recovery Center. He has centers in both Denver and Boulder, Colorado. He was clinically trained by Dr. Patrick Carnes, just like myself, has over 30 years of addiction recovery experience. This is a man who has made it his mission to know what is in the best interest of his patients. And he has developed and patented a theory and treatment modality to treat sex addiction from a trauma-based attachment model. It's called TINSA. That's capital T, capital I, capital N, capital S, capital A. And so he's going to be talking to us about what is the TINSA theory and how did he develop the extensive research, and how does he incorporate the work of well-respected professionals in the field, including our favorite, Bessel van der Kolk. Oh, my goodness, this guy is amazing. The Body Keeps Score, probably the Bible on trauma. Stephen Porges, Ellen Shore, Peter Levine, Pat Ogden, Bruce Perry, Tabor Mate, Daniel Siegel, and, of course, my hero, Patrick Carnes. So TINSA is the model of treatment used at the Colorado Sexual Recovery Center, and they believe that the origin of sexual addiction lies in the damaged autonomic nervous system due to developmental traumas. So he's going to be talking about that, and of course I have a lot of questions I am going to be asking him. So I'm just so happy to have him on the show, and I've been waiting a while. He is absolutely Amazing. So, that's what we got planned for tonight. You're going to love the show. And in the meantime, I get so many emails from people that are hurting. And after I answer their questions, whether it be on the air or interpersonally, they do a fabulous job of referring to me people they think would be very interesting for the show. So my buddy, let's just call him Tom, said, hey, I contacted you before the holidays and told you my story, and you used it on the show. And I found a wonderful resource named Roger Lockard. He just released a 4-part show, half hour each part, on YouTube talking about the game of addiction. He uses the terms of quitting drinking and getting addicted to something else as changing seats on the Titanic, still suffering from an addiction. He's mapped it all out, and I thought you'd be very interested in it. So I thought you should have a look. I need to find a solution, and it's helping me to get better. So Tom from Long Island, thank you so much for giving me that helpful hint. I told Tom, anybody who wants to recommend somebody, I'll take a look at their show, I'll take a look at their YouTube, I'll take a look at their website, and if I think it'll help you, I make it my mission then to bring it on the show. So I hope to have Roger Lockard on very soon. And again, Tom, I thank you for pointing that out to me. Now, tonight I was talking to an addict, and he said to me, Carol, I am struggling because my wife doesn't seem to be getting better as fast as I am. Yeah, it's true. He has a recovery program. He has fellowship. He has lots of things going in his favor. And he said, she called me today, and she was mad at me from the get-go. And it made me mad that she was mad at me, and I don't get it. Why can't she see my progress? Well, I'm here to tell you that, unfortunately, there's lots of things that trigger your wife that you're not even aware of, and she can't help it if she wakes up all angry. The number one thing that you need to do to improve your relationship and kind of make up for the damage that you may have caused is reassurance. And so when, if you're with a partner and she just kind of attacks you and you've been doing some good, solid recovery, and you're like, what the blank? I'm doing good work. I'm here to tell you that there are triggers that you're not even aware of that she's dealing with, and your number one goal to do damage control is to do this. You need to reassure. As she's yelling at you about something that you can't even track because you don't know where it's coming from, you say to her, honey, I am so sorry that I've caused you this pain. That's number one. Then you say to her, I realize that you are suffering deeply, and it breaks my heart that you're going through this. That's number two. And then you reassure, you know what, I am working a strong program, and I am here for you because I know I caused you this pain, and I love you, and I want us to get better together. Okay, write that down because that's a reassurance statement that will work probably every time that she gets triggered. If you mean it with sincerity and you know that your goal right now is to get healthy yourself and to reassure her that things will get better. I know it feels like a lot of doggone work, but I promise you it is what you need to do to make it up to her because you didn't mean to. When you were in your sexual addiction, you did not have any idea how it would affect your relationship, but it did. And now you've got to make it up to her. It's the least that you can do. And when you do that, you help repair the damage that was done and reassure her and create more safety, because you know, if you've been listening to me for weeks or months or even years, gosh, I'm on my third year here of the show, you have got to create safety and then connection and then trust. That's what you need to do. So I am so happy to be reminding you of what you need to do. It doesn't get any better than that, and it's an easy formula to follow, and I've got to promise you that even though it's an easy formula, it can be difficult when you're feeling the shame and somebody's attacking you and you're doing good work. As an addict, you've got to know that you've got to take that extra step and go that extra mile to make it right. I am Caro the Coach. This is Sex Help with Caro the Coach. And again, we've got a riveting show for you tonight because we're going to learn about a new model that helps you with trauma. And I have Dr. Michael Barta on the line. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Caro.
Yes, you have been working on this model for a while, and it seems so comprehensive. I was wondering if you could tell our listening audience about TINSA.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So TINSA stands for Trauma-Induced Sexual Addiction, and it's a method I've developed specifically to look at the formation and to treat sexual addiction through a neurobiological lens. And I think we found a way to treat the cause and the core of addiction rather than simply using the abstinence and behavioral methods that are out there for sobriety and recovery. Gabor Mate says, we don't ask why the addiction, we ask, where's the pain?
Now, how do you believe that your model is different from all the other treatment techniques and facilities that treat sex addiction?
Well, I think that we all have seen that trauma often accompanies compulsive sexual behavior. But TINSA, in the TINSA-R, which is the Trauma-Induced Sexual Addiction Recovery, is the first full model to use interpersonal neurobiology and psychobiology to explain the formation and treatment of this addiction. Sexually compulsive behaviors is a primary indicator to me and the people that work with me that damage has occurred within our autonomic nervous system. And this damage stifles people's natural ability to authentically seek, find, and or even maintain healthy intimacy.
Okay. What do you actually address that's different or maybe more expedient in terms of the efficacy of treatment?
So we treat the core of the addiction rather than just providing tools to keep the addiction suppressed or in remission. So when I started treating sex addicts, I learned that using the tools to keep this problem in check seemed to have a high rate of relapse. So in trauma treatment terms, this is what we call a top-down approach, because top-down means that we're working with thoughts and behaviors rather than what's actually causing the addiction. So the tools weren't enough. And I developed TINSA to address the core issues of the people I was treating, working specifically with the autonomic nervous system, and that is a bottom-up approach. We've known for years that the hijacked brain causes for addiction, but hijacking doesn't occur in the thinking part of our brains. The hijack brain actually takes place automatically from our old and limbic portions of our brain. So looking and working with these systems is what we're calling the bottom-up approach, and so does Pat Ogden and Peter Levine and people that work with a more body-oriented approach for treating trauma. So identifying the trauma allows the client to be aware that they're experiencing a physiological reaction to a previous wound, and therefore giving them more options in their ability to respond to that wound.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, obviously a lot of the reaction is involuntary. I mean, it has to do with the past, and it has to do with the way people responded in their past. So you talked about the brain, and would you describe the 3 or 4 parts of the brain and how they function together?
Sure. Basically what we're looking at here is some very rudimentary understandings developed by Dr. Stephen Porges in his polyvagal theory. We're biological creatures, and our brains and nervous systems develop over time, And his theory shows that there are 3 distinct formations in our brain that we use and we've used and continue to use for survival. First, we have our most primitive brain, and its function was only to freeze in place when threatened. But later on, as we began to venture out more and we grew arms and legs and the ability to move about, we developed the capacity to fight or flee our predators, and that would be the limbic portion of our brains. And finally, humans developed a system that not only allowed more civilized responses to these threats, but it allows us to connect others for the safety and survival we're looking for.
Got it. And so, knowing that attachment and trauma are at the heart or the core of recovery, tell me how your model attends to that issue.
Well, we kind of believe that all addiction is an automatic response to a perceived threat. And these threats are registered as sensation, feeling, and through chemical reaction, it's what we experience as pain. Thoughts come much later in our process. So when we're looking at a person, we are saying that something has occurred to them in order for them to seek something to kill the pain. All right? So addiction to me is a method that is used unconsciously in an attempt to increase, mitigate, or reduce sympathetic and parasympathetic hyper or hypoarousal. And that's what we see in people who have attachment trauma. So they're either revved up all the time, or they are able to respond at all. And you'll see that with the people with the flat, numb, depressive affect. So people use either substances or behaviors to make themselves feel better. And feeling better means able to have a regulated or controlled nervous system. Attachment wounding leaves a person pretty much in a perpetual state of dysregulation. So they have to seek things outside of themselves in order to feel regulated. So the core of addiction is in our automatic response system that acts unconsciously to rid us of pain.
Right. So are you the first person to recognize that sex addiction might be caused by this pain and trauma?
No, absolutely not. So as far back as 1985, Dr. Patrick Carnes was producing research indicating that those that suffer from sexual addiction had experienced developmental trauma. Other people who are major contributors to the theory that attachment and addiction are interwoven are Bessel van der Kolk, Gabor Mate, as I mentioned earlier, Daniel Siegel, and those are just the most known. But there's been an extensive history that describes the correlation of early trauma and sexual addiction. TINSA actually, though, is the first model to break down the correlation to identify and treat the specific damage that occurs from the trauma. We believe that attachment traumas predispose the person to addictive behavior.
Okay, so then obviously you got trained by one of the best, Dr. Patrick Carnes, and you built from the research that he had done using a lot of different theorists and researchers, Bessel van der Kolk, Tabor Mate, Daniel Siegel, to just name a few. TINSA actually breaks down the correlation to identify the specific damage that occurs from trauma. And so what good does it do to be able to identify the damage of trauma? I mean, how does that help?
Well, again, it allows us to treat the core of the addiction rather than just providing tools to keep the addiction suppressed or in remission. So earlier when I mentioned that there was a high rate of relapse, what I've noticed is that people were doing these behavioral methods and they were given tools and projects to keep their addiction in check, but they were never figuring out or working with the underlying cause that made them go out to seek relief in the first place. They weren't exploring their triggers at length or at depth. They weren't exploring what had happened to them earlier. And as I'm sure most of your listeners and you definitely know, that this being an intimacy disorder is about our inability to stay close to people. It's our inability to allow people in. That occurs in the nervous system. That doesn't occur in the thinking brain. The thinking brain comes later saying, I'm in danger, but it's a sensation, it's a feeling, it's an automatic reaction that repels people from healthy relationships.
Okay, and that would probably help people to understand why so often they experience a sensation and they're not necessarily sure what's going on. And then if they put it together, they can link it up with other times when they didn't feel safe, when they didn't feel attached, when they felt abandoned or felt some sort of trauma. But you're saying when that trauma initially occurs, it registers in their bodily system. It registers in their brain, but they don't have a reason for it. They aren't able to link it up with a cognitive reason.
No, and most of the times, Carol, it's unconscious. Okay, so...
And for our listeners, there are three parts of the brain. There's the unconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious. And, of course, the conscious would help you to understand exactly what's going on. The unconscious means you have no idea, and the subconscious means you may have some understanding that goes incognito for a while. So this is stored in the unconscious. And so your treatment model, how does it bring that out?
Well, we're looking, below that level of awareness. And to find what's below the level of awareness, we have to go with sensation. Because a lot of the times these wounds occurred before there was language developed within the person. So this is sometimes some pre-verbal wounding. So what we look at is where have the wounds been as far as in their systems of connection, their attachment systems, or in their systems that they use to protect themselves. And when we find those wounds and make those conscious to these people, then they can start matching up with trigger, the sensation, and the response that they're giving these sensations. Because what we do with sensation is we make meaning with them, with the conscious or the thinking part of our brain. And oftentimes when there's trauma, this meaning is not correct.
Okay, so give me a real-life circumstance, somebody that you've worked with that has experienced this sequence of events.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of one of my clients that came in today because it's fresh in mind. in my mind. So he came in and, pardon me?
I said great.
Oh, okay. And so he came in today and was experiencing a high level of anxiety. And what he started saying is, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go bad. I'm going to get in trouble. That's what he was feeling. So there was almost this, if we wanted to call it, there was a little bit of paranoia going on that something bad was going to occur. Well, when we got him settled down and started figuring out what the sensations were and took him back to an earlier time when he was experiencing these sensations as well, he noticed, and we were able to show and we were able to demonstrate to him, and he was able to demonstrate to himself, that he was having this sensation of anxiety. And what his brain was automatically doing was searching for times in the past where he had felt anxious. Well, growing up, he had to feel anxious a lot when his family wanted him to produce all the time, and when he was not producing, he felt like he was in trouble. He felt, less than and worth less. So what we did, we started looking back at some of these earlier attempts to feel safe, and what his brain was doing was going all the way back to find out, something that had been stuck early on in his life, and he automatically relates that in his thinking brain now with the sensation of anxiety. So this is how trauma repeats itself. It's a feeling that we have in our bodies, but then we start attaching meaning to it in our thinking or our conscious part of our brain, and oftentimes it's incorrect because this man had nothing that he was going to be in trouble for. He had nothing to worry about. The other shoe was not going to drop. He's very successful in his recovery and in his work and in his partnership right now. So he was seeing reality through the lens of trauma. And in the past, he would have dealt with this feeling of anxiety by self-destructive behaviors. He would have acted out because that's how he was calming his autonomic nervous system. So when we can make the unconscious conscious, when we can make what's below the level of awareness conscious to the person, there's another choice. There's like, okay, I'm feeling this feeling, but it doesn't have to mean what I think it means. This is a sign and a symptom of attachment disorder because people who can't differentiate, and what differentiate in this situation means is they can't distinguish that the feelings inside their body aren't really happening outside their body. So they start making things up to match the feeling with reality. And oftentimes they don't match. That's the guiding of the behavior.
Okay, so here's somebody who is experiencing all those feelings, and they're trying to link it up with their past, and they think they found a link, but in essence, they really haven't. How do you get them to distinguish, no, you're successful, you're working a strong recovery program, and you don't have to go back to the past? What do you do about that?
So you don't have to go back to the past to find this. But what we can start seeing is that things in our past are still very much alive in our bodies in the form of trapped response. All trauma is, Carol, is when a natural response to an instinct, such as the need to connect with someone, was hindered or stopped or it was unavailable. When that completion was not able to complete, when that instinct was not able to complete that response it was looking for, it stays stuck in our bodies and in our procedural memories. And then from that point on, we're going to still work towards completing that response, that connection response, but now we're going to do it most likely in maladaptive ways. if the response was big enough and it caused sympathetic charge, say the person wanted to run away, every time that something occurs in the future that's similar to that event that didn't happen, then the sympathetic nervous system is going to come online and say, you need to run. You need to run right now. And oftentimes that's not appropriate or even reality. But the person's only listening to the sensation, and then they're listening to the meaning that their thinking brain's making up about the sensation. So we're not really going back to find all the, everything that occurred at once, but we do try to look back to figure out where the wounds occurred within the systems of connection and protection.
Okay, that totally makes sense. So you really are training your addicts to go back and figure out, is there a reason for that based on that core of addiction?
Yeah, Carol, yeah, exactly. We're being mom and dad, actually, because if mom and dad had been successful, these nervous systems would already be doing this. So
then I've got a question, because obviously our clients are in so much pain, and they typically have not gotten what they need as a kid, and they've experienced that trauma. Now, not every sex addict has experienced trauma, but a large majority of them have. So when you get a client, what's the very first thing you do to determine whether their brain has been hijacked or not?
Well, we want to look at everybody that comes into my office, and I may be repeating myself a little bit, but I look to see, because I'm under the basic assumption that at one time or another they were hurt, when they were vulnerable, okay? Something stopped these people from having the ability to be vulnerable. And neurobiologically, what we look at is either they experienced a failure in connecting with other people, or they failed in being able to protect themselves. These are failures in attunement. And I look at my clients because, and I don't have a checklist, but they lack empathy, they lack autonomic regulation. They suffer from the inability to differentiate, what I was saying, what's going on inside their bodies from reality, what's happening outside. They're not very good with social cues, and what I mean by that is nonverbal social cues. They will misread people's nonverbal communication, because attunement is much more than mom and dad taking care of us and holding us and carrying us around and providing for us and feeding us. Attunement happens through nonverbal communication. So we learn, and our mirror neurons learn, when we're nonverbally communicating, if our caregivers are communicating back to us and meeting that need, that's what builds empathy. That's what builds people's ability to regulate their own emotion. But my addicts, the people who come in, walk around like they're in a dissociated state, and then they overreact with high sympathetic charge, meaning they act out of anger or fear or running, or if it's large enough, they'll stay stuck in the ability to respond at all. And this deficit makes it nearly impossible to successfully bond with other people in an authentic way. They can have false selves that they try to put out in front of them that people think is who they're marrying or who they're dating, but they're not being authentic. And it also sets people up, this deficit in attunement sets people up to look outside themselves in ways to emotionally regulate, be it alcohol, drugs, but sex is one of the behaviors people use to regulate themselves as well, because the nervous system was never appropriately groomed to work in a self-sufficient manner.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Now, you obviously are using this practice in your own specialized treatment centers, and you are obviously the founding director of a very important treatment center, the Colorado Sexual Recovery Center in both Denver and Boulder, Colorado. Tell me, how can our clients who might want to use your approach and learn it so that their brain is no longer hijacked in the old way, how can they contact you and look more into TINSA, which again is capital T, capital INSA, TINSA?
Well, you can look on my website, which is www.cosexualrecovery.com. People can email me directly, and that's DR, like doctor, M as in Michael, Barta, BARTA, @gmail.com. They can contact my office at 303-775-7529.
Yeah, because, in lots of ways, and I'm sure you remember this, that Dr. Patrick Carnes had said to us, as clinicians, we are going to have to learn about the brain and understand things like the autonomic brain system, and we're going to have to know the different chemicals that the brain produces and releases. And it's not just an illness of willpower. It's not just an illness of discipline. It's actually what the brain is doing as a result of the trauma that one has experienced, whether it's pre-verbal or verbal. And so you've taken this model and you've developed it to help to explain why people react the way they react.
Yes, Dr. Carnes started us all off. And if he were where he was when he started, if he was the age of when he was started, he would be doing this work too. I'm sure he would be doing it much better than I would be doing. But you're right. He asked us to go out and learn more and stand on his shoulders and help people with this addiction in ways that he wasn't able to get to. And that legacy is a very beautiful thing. He's, all the people that he's trained, as you're aware, are, doing phenomenal work to grow this field and to look at different ways. And Dr. Carnes is the person that gave us the foundation.
Yes, I absolutely agree. He's an amazing founder of this work. And have you actually talked to him about your model? Because this is really exciting, and it's exactly the direction he wanted all of us to go.
I have not spoken with Dr. Carnes as of yet. I announced this, I think, in November on our listserv that I was doing this. And right now we're formulating more a treatment modality that we can pass on to other people. And at that point, then I'm going to bring in the experts to take an eye on it and start, critiquing and giving suggestions and possibly, using it in the future.
Absolutely. And so how many clinicians do you have using this model at your center? Or centers, I should say.
Well, we have 6 people right now, and I'm really excited because as of 2 weeks ago, we hired a physician, and she is going to be working with our practice, not only treating the mood disorders, and she's taking the CSAT training as well. She's also trained in the partner model, which is the APSAT model, because we want to take this model and make it significant as far as having physical and quantitative proof that it's working. So
we're always looking for empirical evidence to show something is working and how. And so you're going to be doing the ABSATs. You're going to be using their model, too, to help partners to deal with their trauma that they've had. And before the show, before you came on, I was talking about the fact that I'm getting trained starting this week in that model. So I'm real excited that you're going to be applying your model to their model, because that's an amazing group of people that want to help the entire family system.
Absolutely, because this is systemic. And, it's not just, I don't know if I quoted it or someone else quoted it, but I love using the statement that hurt people. And, the person who's traumatized with the addiction, unfortunately, does a lot of damage in the lives of other people, primarily the spouse and the children. So this trauma just doesn't stay within one person. It's an unregulated nervous system that's damaging other people's nervous systems. And so the ABSAT model is a perfect example of helping the partner through the damage that's occurred through the betrayal and the trauma from the sex addiction.
Yeah, I know this is simplistic, but I say on my show, and I tell it to my clients, it may be the addict that carries the shame, but it's the partner that carries the pain. And so I'm thrilled that you're going to be using this, because talk about a brain that's hijacked. The hypervigilance that partners feel when they to, and then when they don't necessarily need to, but it's an automatic response to protecting themselves from further trauma.
Absolutely. It was a failed connection, and it was a failed ability to protect themselves. So our two systems of survival that are working 24/7 were not able to work properly. And then these poor people are stuck with that hypervigilance. They don't know where safety is.
You're actually not only helping them with that process, but you're doing research to substantiate what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And I have to give a big shout out to Peter Levine and Pat Ogden and Francine Shapiro too, because Marsha Linehan and David Grand, because these are all people who have been working with the autonomic nervous system many, many years. And they're providing us with the actual techniques to learn how to self-regulate, to learn how to not respond inappropriately to triggers that aren't real. All right? So, this work has been going on a long while. I'm just making it focused on the cause and the treatment of sexual addiction.
Well, and it seems like you are theoretically explaining it a little bit differently than other people. Now, let's just say you had a partner whose brain was hijacked and they're hypervigilant, and, there are times that they should be following their gut, knowing that they need to protect themselves, and other times that this response is happening, like you said, unconsciously, certainly involuntarily. What are some of the techniques you would use with a partner to help them to regulate their emotions?
Well, it goes back to that differentiation. And as you know, as a trained clinician, the most important thing that we can do for a partner when he or she comes in that state of trauma is we let them know that what they're experiencing is absolutely normal. In fact, I congratulate them for experiencing it, because it shows that they have a very healthy nervous system that's working accurately. It's doing its job to protect them, but they don't understand and can't differentiate between these horrible feelings inside and what's going on outside. So the addict is sitting there saying, hey, I've stopped. Well, they've heard that a million times before. So we have to pull them back from looking for safety outside and start helping them know they're already safe inside. And we do that with psychoeducational techniques while exploring the trauma of the protection wound, because most of the time they weren't able to protect themselves because their husband or their wives were lying to them. So they wanted to believe, but they were being betrayed. And we show them through our techniques by getting in touch with sensation and emotion. And have you ever heard the term pendulation?
Okay, say that one more time. Have I ever heard of the
term pendulation? I mean, it's a very simple technique. Yes. So
explain that to our listeners.
Pendulation is, in the simplest terms I can explain, is that we allow a person to feel what they're feeling given their hypervigilant state, and then we bring them back into their bodies within the room, within the session. We can do that by just using our five senses. It's the most effective way to get back into the body, to come back to reality, to get out of dissociation, to get out of high hyper arousal, is to come back to the body. And we allow them to then experience calm. All right? So I always point out to them that I did nothing but show them a technique. They did everything within their own bodies. They did everything within their own minds. The only difference is they stopped focusing on the sensation and the spinning brain about what this means, and they came back to the present moment. They came back through their senses. They smelled things. They looked around the room and they named items. They told me what they could hear. They could feel, I say, what do you feel outside your body? The temperature of the room, sitting on the couch, your feet on the floor, having some different things in the room that you can give them, some candies or some gums or things like that they can, get the taste going. So we use the five senses to bring them back and to help them calm down, so that the next time they're in this automatic triggered response, they now have the ability to bring themselves back. And
so a lot of times for some of our listeners, those kind of techniques are called grounding techniques that really help the person to go from that disassociated stance back to the reality of what's going on, and it empowers them to feel their feelings, to feel their sensations, so that they can assess reality from a different place, from a very grounded place. And that's what you help them with.
Yeah, we give them the ability to consciously know their trauma. We give them the conscious ability to know their triggers. And then we give them techniques to calm down so that they have choice and response. And this works for the addiction and the addict too, because most, I find, addiction or acting out occurs often in a dissociated space. And we choose our behaviors as a reaction versus a response, because you've worked with addicts that you can say, why did you do this? And they say, I have no idea. I wasn't there. I wasn't conscious. I mean, it doesn't make sense that a person who's going to lose their family, is going to lose their career, is going to lose maybe even their freedom, will continue to do behaviors if they're using their thinking brain before they're going in and acting out. So I'm looking at, addiction as being a dissociative or a really high sympathetically charged state of arousal where the limbic and the old brain are actually what's responsible, not the thinking part of the brain. And we want to give them choice. We want to give them the ability for their conscious brain, their thinking brain, to come back online long enough to say, you know what, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah, and truly, that stops that hijacking of the brain. Absolutely. Because no longer is that autonomic nervous system taking over. what would you call the system that takes over when you're using that logical brain?
Pardon me? Well,
what would you call that? What takes over at that point after you've got the unconscious part of the brain wanting to protect, and you've got that autonomic nervous system that, it's kind of that fight, flight, or freeze taking over.
Absolutely.
Once you've grounded that person, once you have helped them to realize what the reality is, what part of their brain are they using?
Well, when I explained before rudimentarily, that's a word, about the 3 different parts of the brain. So the way Stephen Porges looks at it is that our first line of defense as human beings to access safety, to know that we're safe, comes from our ventral vagal nerve, which is Stephen Porges calls his social engagement system. That's when we're conscious. We're able to see reality. We can assess and orient to the room and know that there are no threats present. Then if that doesn't work, what comes on next is our fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system. And then if that doesn't work, then the second branch of the dorsal vagal, which is our parasympathetic nervous system, and one branch of the parasympathetic is rest and digest, but the other branch is that old branch that causes us to freeze. So if we get a person at a freeze and we're able to have them not engage or disengage, let me say that again. If we're able to have them disengage their sympathetic nervous system and they know they're safe, then they're acting out of that social engagement system. And that's the thinking part. That's the conscious part of our brain where we're online. There's nothing below the surface saying, hey, danger, danger, we got to get out of here. We got to run. Okay, it's too big. I need to shut down. Those are no longer what we're incorporating and what we're using. We're using our social engagement system to know that we're safe. And the more a person does this, the better they get at understanding then when there is an actual threat. Now, we have to go in and take away the trauma first. And as you know, we can do that with EMDR. We can do that with somatic experiencing. We can do that with sociomotor psychotherapy or brain spotting, or we can do it with dialectical behavioral therapy, because the sensation is what is causing the people to react, and the sensation is caused by an incomplete response. So if a person is able to complete the response, if they are able to understand that they now can protect themselves or they can now, find a way to connect, then that sensation leaves the body. It's no longer trapped in there. So people, once you ground them, they start to understand that they're present, they can be mindful, and that they are in control of their own systems. It's not up to someone else.
That makes so much sense. I love this model. I so wish you the best of luck with it, because I'm telling you, people want to make rational what their body is telling them when it's irrational. And so I'm thrilled that you've got these kind of methods to work with a person. Again, Dr. Barta, what would you say is the best way to contact you?
The best way to contact me directly is through my email. And again, that's DR, like Doctor, M as in Michael, Barta, BARTA, @gmail.com.
Okay. Well, keep us posted. Let us know when you've got new techniques and treatments. You're obviously an innovative person in our field. You not only are clinically based, but you're research-based, and you're a theorist as well. So I wish you the best of luck, and we want to keep abreast of everything you're doing.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And we will talk again soon.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Okay.
So we were talking with Dr. Michael Barta, and there is no doubt this man knows his stuff. He is amazing. He has worked diligently to figure out what it is that helps people to work through their trauma and the abandonment that they feel. And, this is a tough experience for so many people. They just are not sure what they can do to make their lives different. And so he's got something that he is absolutely working through to make life better. And we just so appreciate that he has been working with us. Again, you can contact him by Googling Dr. Michael Barta or by looking at his TINSA model. And again, that's capital TINSA. And he has a center, the Colorado Sexual Recovery Center, and that's both in Denver and Boulder, Colorado. So we look forward to hearing more about what he's doing and take it to the next level. So I appreciate you hanging with us, learning these new methodologies. Please contact him. And stay tuned for more innovative treatment modalities here on Sex Help with Caro the Coach. And as I say at the end of every show, hey, there will only be one of you at all times, so fearlessly have the courage to be yourself. And I'll look forward to seeing you next Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great week.